Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know it's like been 4 months. I'm pretty sure that's on me. You know, I'm tired of my excuses. I'm tired of I don't feel like it. Tired of letting my PCOS dominate me. So I am trying to film once a week and post once a week and get some more content out there. So sorry about that. In this video, we're going to talk about my testimony. I understand that Christianity can be uncomfortable and something you don't want to hear about. So if you want to click off, if you want to listen to part of it, you know, be my guest. I'm more than happy for you to stay, but take care of yourself. If it's something that you just don't want to hear about or talk about, just click off and I'll see you in another video. But you know the drill. Let's get into our prayer. We'll play the intro and we'll start the video. Lord, thank you so much for this day and all your many blessings. Thank you for the viewer watching me and bless their lives. And Lord, let somebody see this video that needs this word of encouragement in their life. And Lord, just have your way and let your kingdom come and your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen. Cue the intro. Alright, so let's get into my testimony. So before I start this video, I will cry a lot. I'm not gonna just breeze past that. I know I'm gonna cry. I'm super open about the passing of my mom, but there's still some hard things to talk about. And other Christians just really write me off. Like they don't, my story doesn't matter to them. And this is kind of a video for people who do want to get to know me better and who do want to hear that story without any interruptions and telling you my story in my own words, because people leave that out about me. They totally swipe the whole Christian thing off, and that's what I'm super big about. And you know, that's always been my message. Starting social media, I wanted to start it when I was 17 and I just did not have the right mindset about it. And there was a plan behind that, and I totally see it now, but you know, it just started later. And I'm glad that I started now versus then, because I would have made fun of myself along with you all if I started social media when I was 17. I just had a terrible mindset. I was just kind of a terrible person. I didn't want evil and try to be evil, but I just hated everything, was mad at everything, just a typical teenager, and just didn't really thrive on life at all. And you know, nobody would have wanted to watch that, is the point, you know. So let's get into it. You know, if you're emotional, I'm so sorry. I'm probably gonna make you cry. I know I'm gonna cry. So it took about a couple of weeks to really push myself to film this video. A lot of prayer, and I want to tell you about a moment that I had. I was at work scrolling on TikTok on my break, and I actually used that sound in one of my TikToks. It's the woman from War Room, Priscilla something. I cannot ever remember her name. I can when I see it on a video, but I can't remember it to tell you who she is. But I was listening to her sound. It wasn't hers. Somebody took one of her sermons and put it on a sound on TikTok, and she was talking about the Lion King. She was you know how Simba is cornered by the hyenas and he's roar, and they're haha, is that all you got? You're puny, you're pathetic. You want to do it again? And he's roar, and they're just still egging on that he's a little lion and he's pathetic. And then the third time he does it, Mufasa comes out, and I got so emotional hearing that, and I heard God come over my spirit and say, you know, that's why your testimony is so important, because I knew I was gonna cry. That's why your testimony is so important, because you had that moment where you could have gave up on me, and you chose to let me have your back and let you help you live through that fear that you had before it happened. And you know, that's like really what my story is about. My prodigal moment where I was like, here I am, God, and there's no turning back. It's all about you and me at this point. And you know, that's what my testimony is. Now that I've dried it up, I'm going to start with early life. So a little bit about my family. So you're going to hear mom and mom. Mom is my birth mother. Mom is my mom's mom. She's my grandma, but she doubled as my mom too. So she's mom. And then, you know, let's just get into it. So there's a document that existed. I didn't look at it, but my mom told me about my mom and my papa that just like blew my mind when they found it the week that she died. I didn't know that the year before I was born that my mom took out an EPO on my papa. Like, I didn't know those people. They never existed to me. As far as I knew, my grandparents were this loving couple. Like, they had their issues like anybody else, but they loved each other, and you know, they were part of my life. And grandparents are so special if you have them, and I love mine very much. I had them and my dad's mom growing up. My dad's mom was and everybody in my family says my dad's mom is but you know, it is what it is. But I was blessed to have one set of grandparents that loved and cared about me. And you know, grandparents are literal treasures from heaven, and I'm sorry if you've never got to experience grandparents, because they're just phenomenal. But my mom told me this right before she died, and it still really breaks my heart a little bit. The year before I was born, she was just like praying, like, God, give me something to distract me from what's going on in my life. My marriage, she wasn't happy with her marriage. She wasn't happy at work. She wasn't happy with anything. And she was like, God, give me something. And on her birthday in 1996, which is also my husband's birthday, she found out that she was going to be a grandparent for the very first time. And she cried and was like, okay, I'm like so excited, you know, like a typical grandparent. And so my mom and dad they were divorced January of that year, and then they got remarried because I was coming. And you know, back in Kentucky back then, you got married if you got pregnant. I mean, they already were married for like 6 or 7 years at that point. They had just failed. And then when I was born, they tried again, but they got divorced when I was 3 months old. And so from the beginning of my life, there was always dysfunction. And for the first 3 years of my life, I was at my grandparents pretty much 24/7. I think that's why I bonded with them so well and loved them so much, and didn't see like anything terrible about them, which there's nothing terrible about them. I'm just like saying I had a happy little life the first 3 years. And so there's that part of my life. Pretty much my mom got addicted to drugs when I was about 6 years old, and we had a horrible relationship throughout my childhood and teenage years. And it didn't get better till I was an adult. And, you know, it is what it is. Which I'll get to my mom later. I'm super proud of her now and who she is today, but it wasn't back then. But, so, really, my childhood, it's really boring. I grew up in church. I knew who God was. Never doubted God. Never doubted God existed. You know, and my parents, my grandparents, my mom, they really didn't pressure me into believing in God. I mean, sure, they made me go to church when I was a kid and stuff, but I had my phases where I was able to do what I wanted to do, and God was still there, even if I didn't want him to be. So we're kind of going to skip So I went to live with my dad when I was 13, 14. I was in 7th grade. I literally switched schools after Christmas break. My mom had lost custody of me the year before because I went to school and told the school some stuff. And so my dad put in for a custody battle, and my mom ended up signing me over. And so I lived with my dad from the time I was 14 or 13, 14 to, my adult life. And, I have a great dad. I love my dad. But, it's really boring until, about high school, when my story it's really boring until about high school, and I guess my story truly begins. So I felt so unloved as a kid. Even though I had people around me, I just didn't feel very loved. I felt very abandoned for some reason, and I don't know why, but I just really wanted to do acting, wanted to be on a camera. I wanted fame, wanted fortune really bad. And I started theater in high school, and that was sort of an outlet. High school for me wasn't horrible. Would I do it again? No, but it wasn't horrible. I was picked on like the average person, I guess you would say. I wasn't severely bullied is what I'm saying. Everybody has their horrible weeks, moments in high school, but I really didn't have that. I was just kind of there. I was kind of there. I wasn't popular. I wasn't picked on. I was just there. That's how I felt. I'm here. But when I was 17 and YouTube started blowing up and makeup started blowing up and hair started blowing up, I already had an interest in that stuff, but I was like, man, I would really love to do that stuff. I'd really love to film what I do every morning and film what I wear to school and stuff. But the motives behind it was really not it and not there. It was more about this and, oh, look at me, my face is on a magazine. The motives just weren't positive. They weren't because I wanted to make an impact or wanted to do something well with myself. They were just, I want to feel some form of love, and this is the way to get it. So, I guess I was very lukewarm, trying in high school to pursue doing YouTube. I just kept pushing it off. It didn't feel right, and it makes sense now why it didn't feel right, because I thought that in my mind then, I was like, I have to have a MacBook to do this. I have to have a Canon camera. I have to have the best of the best, and I have to show people that I have the best of the best. So I really kept pushing that journey off, and I'm glad that I did, because I would have made a freaking idiot out of myself. An absolute idiot out of myself. And, that is what it is. But also, when I was 17, I had one previous relationship in high school. I ended it because, I'll say it, I was kind of a prude. I love The Notebook. So I have loved The Notebook since I was 8 years old. I was 8 years old when it came out. And that's how I wanted my love story to be, exactly like that. So I just didn't want to have sex with anybody. And so my first high school relationship when I was a freshman ended because they were really pushing that on me. And I was like, I'm 15 years old. I'm not having sex with anybody right now. So I'll just be single. And I didn't have another relationship till I was about 17. It was a long distance relationship with somebody's family member at my church at the time. And it literally emotionally destroyed me, because it was the first time I was able to open up with somebody again and trusted them, and hey, this is it, this is the one for me. And they just weren't into it like I was. We started dating in February of my junior year. It was fine and dandy the first 3 months, and then all of a sudden, I'm grounded. And I got ghosted before ghosted was even a Urban Dictionary vocabulary word. I'm pretty sure ghosting has been around for longer than we've known it to be, but yeah, I got ghosted for about 3 months, and I was sitting there like throwing up, worried about it, and just like was like, oh my gosh, he's cheating on me, he's gonna dump me. And July rolls around and it happens. We have a 3 or 4 day break. We get back together. He comes down, and a person that I thought I was dating did not exist. And so senior year had started, and I pretty much knew what was happening to me, and I hadn't heard from them in a couple of weeks, even though we were technically still together. And I was like, so what's it gonna be? Like, we should talk about this. Are we in? Are we out? Like, what is it? And he took the cowardly way out and was like, I'm just gonna let you go. I remember that text message. That's something about me. If like something traumatized me, or I had a difficult conversation, like the text messages are photographically like burned in my head. Don't know why, but yeah, that happened, and I was an emotional mess. I was trying to I was still in that super lukewarm phase. Like, I just was for the longest time. Like, I was very lukewarm all through high school. To live with my dad, we really didn't go to church, and I guess I should backtrack a little bit. I had a friend, and we started going to this church when I was 16, and I went there until about last year. And churches, that's none of nobody's business right now, or really ever. But I'm thankful for that church, and that they kind of centered me a little bit in the beginning stages when I was trying to come out of the lukewarmness. And it took time, and it was a process, but I was not like truly trying to get into it until I was 16. But I just was like anybody else. Like, when one setback would happen, I was like, God, you don't love me, you don't even like me. I had those moments. So let's go back to the beginning of senior year. So I was very dysfunctionally depressed. My senior year photograph shows it. I didn't show up for the summer shoot with my hair all fixed up and my makeup all done, and do it. And I would literally get up until the bus was like 10 minutes away, and I literally just would run a brush through my hair and put some mascara on and leave. Like, I was so depressed, I couldn't even look at makeup or think about curling my hair. And it took me about 2 months to really get out of that, and it was hard. I was not eating well. I was having panic attacks at school. I was crying at school all the time, and nobody really knew that. I mean, I didn't tell anybody that, but a couple of people, like one person I did theater with, we sat together in choir, and they just like leaned over and hugged me one day. And I was like, what was that for? And she was like, I just really feel like you need a hug. And I was like, I do. If I'm being honest, I do. And so, a couple months goes by, and I meet my next boyfriend. And, because of the damage that I was dealing with and didn't heal from, it was a total rebound relationship. And I ended up making the decision to lose my virginity in that relationship. And if I thought I was messed up for that, I was really going to be messed up when this relationship ended. So I will say we were both extremely toxic. I was toxic because I had not healed from a relationship. I was dealing with childhood trauma that people still didn't talk about back then. And I just had my own issues going on, and this person had their own issues going on. So we were both extremely toxic. It was an extremely unhealthy relationship, and it's a good thing. I see it now that it's a great thing that it ended, but back then you couldn't have convinced me. So we're both toxic, and is what it is. I think what pushed me to end up ending that relationship was this person had such a hatred for children, and I knew I wanted children, and it just wasn't right. When that relationship ended, I was struggling with an eating disorder not long afterwards because I couldn't keep food down. I was so stressed out and so worried because everybody talked about why they didn't want you to have sex before marriage, but they didn't tell you the damaging repercussions of why, the emotional damage that it could cause you. And it was just a hot mess for me at that point in my life. Eating disorder, and I was just doing reckless things, like reckless things. Like I was hooking up with people, didn't care, was very reckless. I started hair school the following winter, in January, and that was not a fun time. I think I would rather do high school 4 times than go through hair school ever again. It was more dramatic and awful than high school ever could have been. Older than me, one of them literally was older than me, getting into a fist fight with me over something dumb that they posted, and I wasn't Facebook friends with them, and it was just so silly. And it was literally hair school was way worse than high school, and people are like, wow, and I'm like, yeah, but it happened. So hair school, I would say it took me 2 years to get over that relationship fully, both of them combined. I was over the first one when the second one ended, because I had so much damage from that second relationship that I accrued myself by jumping into a relationship and it being a rebound, and just the emotional damage of losing your virginity to the wrong person. So hair school was a mess, and I did this to myself. I will say it. I was so emotionally messed up that, let me tell you what I did in 2 or 3 months in hair school. I started highlighting my hair like crazy, and because I wanted that attention. I knew that person was still watching me. I knew they watched me get a tattoo. I knew they watched me get my nose pierced, and they told me that stuff was trashy. So it was haha. What I would have done was raise my middle finger to the camera back then, but it was just me being spiteful and haha. Said it was trashy, but look how cool I look. That's really what it was for me, and not cool. It was not cool. And it was quite silly actually, but in hair school I had started highlighting my hair, was still trying to get the attention, was almost pretty much platinum blonde. And now mind you, chemical processes should be done 4 to 6, 8 weeks apiece. All this was done in a couple months time period. So it was a lot. Before I started hair school, I had 2 perms, and one of them actually burnt this part of my hair off, and it was growing back, and they made fun of me because I had this piece of hair that stuck out. It was a big chunk too. And then I got upset that it turned green when I hopped in a pool and put brown on it. So I had brown hair with green undertones. And then I went to a different hairstylist, had my hair highlighted, had them put black up here. That's how emotionally unstable I was. I said, yeah, put black right up here instead of using my natural as a base. So it was a hot mess. My hair was a hot mess. And then I let somebody perm it again after highlighting it 5 or 6 times at that point. So I had a pixie cut by the time I left school, for real. And it looked wild because where I had black hair, this part was this color, and then it was black, and then it was somewhat blonde, where the brown it previously was. It was just wild, and it took forever to get my hair back healthy. So I just was emotionally messed up and went through a lot. And I just I broke in hair school. I hit a point when my hair got cut off, where I was like, and the sad thing was, I didn't let God in at all then. It was all me. And that's why I was so broken, because I didn't let him in and let him help me. And when I was in the bathroom and I had cut my hair off, I went in there and cried and blamed my ex. And I was like, it's your fault that I did this, and just that lack of accountability, when it was me. It was all me. And I hit a point where I was like, okay, we've destroyed ourselves. We have hit that final point where we have destroyed ourselves. Let's get up. Start doing something to make ourselves better and head in a better direction. And so that was probably August, maybe August, when my hair had to be chopped off. And I would say about October, November, I was kind of starting to get happy again. I mean, I still had bad days with things. I still had bad days with the breakup. But I genuinely was real with myself and was like, we have got to get it together. And, I finished hair school in January. And I had a break in, employment, because I waited till April to take my first barber test, which is your apprentice license, and then you have to be in a shop for 6 months and go take your master's license in the state of Kentucky. I don't know how it works in other states. There are different rules for each state. I know here it was 1,500 hours for school, and I think it's different. I think it's more in some states and less in others. I'm not sure how it works. If you're curious about that, I guess you'll just have to Google the rules for your state. And I didn't have a car. My dad got taxes back that year. He bought me a car, and I started the job that I currently work at, and started working, making money, and just really started working on myself the summer of 2017. I was going to the gym, going to classes at the gym, getting on track, and just trying to make my life better, and like focusing on myself. Started to go back to church at that point, and still wasn't letting God in. And that's on me, and I wholeheartedly regret that to this day. I feel like I'm very behind in life because I did that. And so let's fast forward a little bit to when I met my husband. Like I said, that year in 2017, I had, was making a great life for myself, started a good job, was working, hanging out with the friends that I had made that year, hanging out with old friends. I just was having a good time. And, I started to love who I was becoming. And then I met my husband, and he was in a very tough place. His dad had dropped him off at college and totally forgotten about him. Just was like, you're on your own, kid. You're raised. Peace. And my husband, so I don't recommend you do this, but this is how sinful I was. I had been hooking up with a person and stopped the month before I met with him, and but I was so happy with who I was. I really didn't care that it ended. And my husband was supposed to be a hookup. So I don't recommend marrying people that you hook up with. Typically, it worked for me and my husband because it was part of God's plan, even though he wasn't. I didn't make him the center of my life at that time. So don't recommend that. And I don't recommend hooking up with people, but that's how it happened. So he called my friend on one of his friends' Facebook, and he was like, hey, so-and-so's mom, they're out of town. Guys, do you want to hang out? Do you got friends? You want to bring them over? And she was like, my friend was like, I'll let you talk to Katie because I have a friend with me, but she might not want to do that. And Brandon was like, hey, why don't you guys come over and, we'll talk and stuff and hang out. And I had called him his friend's name, and he was like, this is Brandon. So that's kind of like how it started. And my dad always taught me. So we got there and I was like, who is that? He is cute. Woo! Just being wild and stupid. Just say it. And she was like, oh, that's Brandon. And played it cool. This is so embarrassing to admit. I was reading a fan fiction and just pretending like that fan fiction was so freaking cool. And Brandon was all over me. And the rest was kind of history. We met up a couple of days later. You know, I had said that, you know, we planned on hooking up. We did. Knew better. Did it anyways. It's kind of how, but yeah. And we were just literally inseparable after that. We didn't like being apart. We loved each other, and that was it, you know. So we went through a really hard time in December. It's a bunch of he said, she said with his family. It's, you know, there's still an unclear truth. Like, you know, there's one person's side, the other person's side, and then the truth, which God knows. And, you know, it's just not worth fighting over, you know, to really keep bringing it up. So we don't really talk about it anymore. But there was just a bunch of discord going on there, and we'd split up for 3 days. I was like, you know, thinking, oh God, I'm going to go through this awful cycle again where I'm, you know, going to be a mess for a long time, because I had missed a couple of days of work because, you know, of the breakup. And Brandon came back home and we made up. That's too much of a story to drag out. And yeah, and just a little bit about my mom. She was really on his side, on Brandon's side. During that, she was like, okay, you're just gonna have to shut up and, you know, let them hang themselves. Let him see who they really are. And you don't do that. She was like, you're just gonna have to just shut up. And I was like, Mom, this is like what I mean by I was like kind of a crappy person. But I just looked at her and was like, Mom, I'm sorry, I can't take crap and eat it with a fork like you do with Papa sometimes, but I can't do this. I have to take it for myself. And I think that's because my childhood, I felt like I had to be silenced. And when I hit adulthood, I was like, I don't have to be silenced anymore. And I do regret saying that to her wholeheartedly. You know, before it's too late, I do recommend, if you like hate something or regret saying something, immediately apologize for it wholeheartedly. He was praying the whole time, and I know that she was, because I was in distress and she worried about me 24/7. So like, I wholeheartedly think God's hand was in that, and I think that her prayers were part of it. So we're about to get to the tough time. Me and Brandon get back together. We move in. We've only been together 3 months, and I'm playing lukewarm with God still. I am playing lukewarm with God still. And this is where it's going to get hard for me to talk about, because it's me being vulnerable and admitting my mistakes and admitting the truth. But about a couple months before she passed away, it's when I would just have these feelings, and I would just be like, and I would cry. My eyes would start watering like they are now, and I'd just be like, Mom, I don't know what I'm gonna do when you're not here anymore. And she would just have this bright smile and be like, you're gonna carry on, you're gonna be fine, you're gonna be just fine. And one time, and these words do haunt me, but they don't haunt me like they did when she first died. I had said the same thing, and she said, you know, you're gonna be, you know, she said, she flipped it. She said, what are you gonna do when I'm not here anymore? And I said, Mom, I got a lot to do. I'm really wanting to start the YouTube thing. I got a lot to do. I got dreams to make happen, and I got little time to do it. So I guess I'm just gonna have to say bye and let you go, and, you know, just fight the race. And it's funny because earlier that year I was crying over not having a house and a car, and a lot of people that I went to school with, like, you know, they were starting to get those things, and like I said, I felt really behind all the time, like, in my life. Earlier that year I'd been crying about both, and so, and I want to say this too, and I really think it was God. I grew up believing that you shouldn't get tattoos in remembrance of the dead. Like, that was the teaching on it, and justified me getting tattoos. I'm not saying tattoos are wrong. I'm just saying I've not really done my own biblical research on that, but like, I just grew up being told that. And a month before it happened, I got my tattoo of me and her. It's 2 calico cats, a little one and a big one, because she called me Kitten my whole life, and calicos were her favorite cat. About a month before it happened, my husband wanted to cover up a piece of his tattoo, and I wanted to, I don't know why, it just came over me. I was like, I need to get a kitten and a mom cat as calico kittens. Like, while we were there, I was like, I don't care how much it costs, I'll go across the road, get your cash out, however much it is. And I did, and she passed away a month later, almost a month later. It was a day shy. And I'll never forget, she worked most Saturdays, and I called her and I was like, hey, are you home yet? And she was like, why, what did you do? I was like, I just gotta show you something. She was like, Kaylin, what did you do? And I was like, I got another tattoo. She goes, what? I'm gonna kill you! And I was like, but it's for you. And she goes, I don't care. And her voice is a lot nicer than that. That's just me, like how I used to make fun of her. And when she saw it, she like, whack, like, she smacked the pee out of me. I was like, ow, what was that for? She's like, you know, I don't like them stupid tattoos. I was like, oh, come on and get one with me. And yeah, so we're gonna skip to a couple of days before she died. Best weekend ever. We had family in. Another family member had just passed away the week before, so family came in, and we had a great time. It was like the perfect weekend. Everybody was laughing, everybody was happy. We were cooking out and eating, and, you know, me and another family member had been fighting, and, you know, she was talking to me about it and was like, you know, I get it, I get how you feel. And she said something to one of those other family members. And it was about me. And, you know, I hate that we were fighting a little bit before that weekend, but it ended up being a great weekend, and it was like the best weekend to finish off her life with. And so Sunday night rolls around, and she texts me, and here's what had been happening. It was signs of PCOS before I knew I had PCOS, but I had been waking up about 30 or 40 minutes late, so I'd be about 30 minutes late for work, and I was having her call me every morning, which we talked most mornings anyways, but I had her call me to make sure I would get up and stand up and get up and get moving. And I was like, you know, I did pretty good this weekend. I don't think I want you to call me. Just have a good day at work, and I'll talk to you on your way to work tomorrow. And she told me she loved me, And actually, my mom had started working somewhere, so she asked me if I could take my mom to work so she could go ahead and get in the bed for work. And I was like, yeah. And this was the last moment I had with her. We're sitting on her couch, just our feet across from, laying across from each other. And we're just talking and, having a good time. And there's this joke about a couple of jokes. This is things I said as a little kid. Like, one is Happy Thanksgiving Day instead of Happy Thanksgiving Day. And the other was, I'll see you in the later, instead of saying, I'll see you later. And, oh gosh, I'm sorry. But I just stood up and hugged her and kissed her. And I said, I love you. I'll see you in the later. And she told me that she loved me too. And, little did I know the next morning would change my life forever. And at first it didn't seem like it was in a good way, but sometimes things just have to happen to make you who you're meant to be. And so I went to bed, woke up late, and it was a normal day. Went to work, I was late, worked over. She would typically get to work about 5, and I had got off at 5 that day. And I called her, and it went to voicemail, and I was like, I must have missed her. And at that point in the day, that was all I knew. And my life didn't change until about 6:30 or 7 that night. So that back then, Brandon couldn't drive. I drove us. We only had one car. I had two, but one was laying down because I had just purchased another one because I knew Brandon was going to get his license at some point and that we needed 2 cars. And, that was that. But, so I went to our apartment, showered. I hate being by myself. Watch crime stories. Hate being alone. Hate being home alone. And I went to my grandparents because I'm a big old chicken. And a state trooper came. And I was like, they're gonna arrest Mom because she owes $20,000 in child support on me. Crap. And let's just say we both wish that that was still the case. Even though I have a different perspective about my mom dying, like, sometimes I still wish that was the case, but it's not. Now, but before I say the next part, please have some grace for this officer. He looked like he was my age then, and I was 22. And this was probably his first time doing something like this, so of course it wasn't the most perfect way to say it. But he called everybody into my grandparents' living room. I was there. He was asking who everybody was. My mom was there. My stepdad was there. My papa was there. And he said, there's been an accident and Janine Petrie didn't make it. And I remember screaming and hitting the ground. And that's about it. And then I remember making the hardest phone calls of my life. One of our family members that had just been down, I called them. I called them first, and I was like, hey, I was trying to say it the best I could. I was like, Mom passed away, and nobody took it well. And then I called one of my mom's sisters, and I was like, hey, this happened. You're gonna have to call everybody else because I can't do this. And she alerted all my mom's sisters. My mom was one of 7, and one had already passed away when I was like 10 or 11. And so and then getting calls left and right, and I just didn't want to answer my phone. Didn't want to talk to nobody. And I was like, you know what though? She's where she wanted to be. Stop being so selfish. And I did not know what grief was going to look like for me. And I knew it was going to be a hard road. And so, for those of you who don't know me, I'm going to kind of explain what happened to my mom. So, she lived in Williamsburg, Kentucky at the time, and would drive to Mount Vernon. That was about a 2-hour drive. She was an RT, so she took care of ventilator patients that were going to be there long term, if not almost all their life. They would be in the hospital on a ventilator. And she was on her way to work, and an accident had already happened, and she was right at the end and was stopped already, and a big semi plowed into her going about 70 miles an hour, and they caused about 7 other cars to pile up, and Mom was right underneath the tractor trailer. But let me chill your bones a little bit, because everybody says you just like gave me chills. You cannot tell me that an angel was not with my mom, because somebody at her funeral said that they had a vision, and then an angel grabbed her her soul out seconds before she died. And then later, even though I chewed them out, the towing company that towed my mom's car posted a picture of it, and in the background in the trees you just see this angel with its arms stretched out looking up. And I was like, thanks for letting me know that you were there. And the third part of that was, despite the horrific photo that gets passed around of my mom's accident, because truck drivers do love to say that she was texting and driving, even though she was almost 65, and she was too slow to do that, and she knew that she was too slow to do that, and she preached at me not to, and I did her texting for her. They still love to say that and pass that photo around. But despite the damage, because I'm just going to describe the picture, it's very graphic, and people cringe looking at it. People are like, how don't you? And I'm like, because I know that she was somewhere safe. She didn't go through that like you think she did. So in the picture, her car is underneath it, and then the front end is around it literally crunched her and then spread the front of the car out. But we were able to have an open casket, and it looked like very minimal damage was done from what we could see. Now, she couldn't wear clothes like I'm wearing, but she bought me this sweater my senior year. It was a black sweater with pearls and rhinestones from the Pretty Little Liars Aeropostale collection. So I buried her in that because she couldn't wear her favorite Sunday dress, because it was it wasn't sleeveless, but it had a very sheer thing, and I guess her arms were just very torn up and mangled was the word that the coroner used. So yeah, it was just awesome to be able to say bye to her face to face. But that week I was I had my moment, and I would be a liar if I said I didn't say, God, why did you do that? Why did you allow that? Because I did have that moment, and he talked to me. Now, I'm not going to tell other people's part, but there's 4 of us, and he talked to me about each of us. And I'll tell you the part about me and my mom. He was talking about my mom's drug addiction, and for me, he was like, you're in the worst spot, Kaylin, and you don't realize it. And he showed me a moment with this, and it was my mom's favorite moment with me. She tells everybody about this, but it was during when I just got out of high school. Second boyfriend I talked about is during that breakup. It was before I started hair school, and it was the first couple of months I would go to church with my mom to try to feel better, and it wasn't working. And I had her read the Bible to me, and I was like, oh yeah, by the way, pray for so and so. But I asked her, I was like, hey mom, can I ask you something? And she was like, yeah, what? And I was like, God's so jealous for us. You know, I'm not saying that this is true, and by the time I know, it won't matter. But I was like, but do you think when Jesus went to hell for 3 days to preach the gospel, that Judas asked for forgiveness and there's a chance that he's in heaven? And she said, I don't know. I didn't really think about that. And she, said what it says in one of, this just proves like how long I've been lukewarm. It's in one of the Gospels, but it says about Judas that basically he would have been better off not to have been born. And I was like, I know, but like, I feel like God loves us so much that he looks for a loophole even when we mess up just to get us home. And she was dumbfounded that I had asked something like that. And a couple of days later, she was like, she looked at me and she was like, can I ask you something? And I was like, yeah. And I was making me a sandwich, and she said, am I a good Christian? And I grabbed the corner of that sandwich and just hit her in the face with it. And she said, ow, and started laughing. And I was like, don't ever ask me that again. Just don't do it. But God pointed out a couple of details to me. He was like, you asked her to pray for somebody, and you should have done that. And you were having her read to you when you should have been doing the reading. And he was like, you can't have me through her. You just can't do that. And I was like, but God, you didn't have to do it like that. And he was like, Kaylin, where do you live? And at the time, my apartment was 2 minutes from her house. He was like, you can't depend on her for everything. You have to grow up too. And I was like, you didn't have to do it that way. So in that moment, in that week, it was a couple of days later, God, here I am. I don't freaking like this. I don't like how it happened, but here I am. I can't survive this without you. Here's my moment. Here I am. And it was really rocky. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was rocky. And my life started changing in great ways after that point. And, I'm going to tell you a couple more stories, but that's where my journey with God really began, out of a lukewarm stage. I'm still not perfect. I'm still trying. I pray every day, God, please help me stop cussing. Like, I still struggle. This was the first year that I have probably seriously read my Bible every day. And, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. You're gonna struggle on a journey with God, but with him, he will hold you up. And that was the point to my mom dying, is I'm not telling you that he allowed her to die to punish me or hurt me or harm me. We have an enemy that comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. And I will tell you this, the year before she passed away, I did that 300 writing prompt book. It was a blue book from Barnes & Noble, and one of those questions was, what was your biggest fear? And I wrote, losing my mom. I won't know how to live my life. Now, I can't get that book back. One of the guys I hooked up with before I met my husband took it, and they've never gave it back. I've asked for it back. He knew that. He knew that was Satan, like, setting that up to destroy me. And he was trying to. But God knew that my mom had planted those seeds early in my life where I was going to come running to him because I was terrified and didn't know what to do. So your journey will not be perfect. You're gonna go through some things that will make you question yourself and maybe God a little bit. But I just trust me, my life has been very blessed and changed since that moment, even if I lost her. But I'm telling you wholeheartedly that Satan thought that he was going to destroy me with that. But God was like, she's my child. She's going to come talk to me about it. And so just a couple of stories to see about it. Grief was awful. It was hard. And I really had to lean on God. I wholeheartedly had to lean on God. I had people remove me from social media because my posts were too much for them. Because I'm just gonna say it, I didn't know what to feel. I was like, who the heck am I? It was like, oh my soul, are you even in there? Are you feeling any of this? Are you okay today? Are you really still in there? Did you check out? Because there were some days I didn't feel anything. And you know, I had a lot coming at me. I had people from a certain side remove me because they were like, and it wasn't all of them, it was just a couple. They were like, it's too much, she's too much, can't handle it. And mentally, emotionally for myself. I had somebody at work telling my team that I used my mom's death as a crutch to get away with stuff, even though that's not true. I honestly just didn't know how to function during that time. And, you know, I took it as a sign. I called a grief counselor and they never called me back. So I took it as a sign, like, don't need counseling. And I truthfully really did. And it was really messy to heal and get through that. But I'm going to end with this story and, you know, talk a little bit more. But the Jeremy Camp movie came out. It's called I Still Believe. And not to spoil it, but if you go watching that, you know that Jeremy Camp lost his first wife. And, you know, you sort of know the story already, but not really. I didn't really know it very well. I didn't know that he was married previously, so it was surprising to me. But people that know Jeremy Camp, and that were alive during that time, because the year started, the year that the story was set in the movie was the first year of my life, literally. It was the day after my birthday that year. But it comes to the part where his first wife dies, and she dies, and the actor that plays Jeremy, he's like, but I didn't get to say goodbye. And I was really mad at God because, I mean, now I don't see it that way. I wholeheartedly think God knew I couldn't handle what I would have heard at the other end of the phone. But Mom died when I would have been on the phone with her in the evenings, because I called her every morning and every evening. You know, she'd be coming home from work in the morning and I would be going to work, and I would call her. And she would be going to work in the evening and I'd be coming home, and we'd call each other. And I think God was protecting me from what I would hear, because about the time her life was claimed, she was hit. And I think that God was really trying to protect me from that. But I was very angry because I didn't get to say goodbye. But anyways, it hits the point where Jeremy Camp's wife, he walked out of the room and she passes away. And he comes back in there and they're trying to bring her back, and he's like, but I didn't get to say goodbye. And in that moment, I heard God speak to me, and he said, because it wasn't goodbye. It was, I'm going to see you later. I'll see you in the later. And like, obviously that like was peace and comfort, but it was like, woohoo, in that theater. And then I'm going to tell you another story really quick. So it's COVID, the lockdown happens, me and Brandon are bored out of our minds in the house. And a lot of podcasts are launching because, you know, everybody's at home doing things, and, you know, we're in lockdown and there's no choice but to be in lockdown. And alright, so I had to get up for a minute and adjust, so my camera angle may look different. So, it's COVID, we're in lockdown, the pandemic's happening, and Ryan Stevenson, he's a Christian artist that sings the song No Matter What and In the Eye of the Storm. He created this podcast called Weathering the Storm, and it was the very first episode that this happened. But the point of the podcast is he has a bunch of guests come on and they talk about like tragic things that happened in their life. And this tragic event sadly happened like the month after my mom passed away. Toby Mac lost one of his sons, and it was very sad and tragic, and we were the same age that year, so it was kind of scary and made me like, I could die at any moment. Kind of like grasp that concept too. But he was talking about that, and I was just listening, and in that moment, I cannot explain how like wild this was. But we were walking at the dog park because that was the only activity we could do then. I couldn't go to the gym, couldn't go to my gym classes. And we were walking our dog Audrey, who you saw in the video. She was the only dog we had at the time. And I was listening to that, and my husband was listening to whatever he was listening to. And he said, I can't remember who he said this to him, but he said maybe not only is it better for Truett, that's Toby Mac's son, but maybe it's better for you too. And before that sentence was over, I was having this vision in my heart, and I was seeing it too. But I saw my mom, and I think it was in heaven. It was so vibrant and so pretty where she was. But she had a table in front of her, and she had this thing like Beauty and the Beast, the dome that goes over the robe, or globe, whatever you want to call it. And in it was a dandelion. It was very symbolic. But in it was a dandelion, and it was just very floating. And she had put that globe over that dandelion, and the seeds on the dandelion, they weren't blown like how you're a little kid and you and make a wish. They were blown like that, but they weren't blown by like her or me or anybody, but they were hitting the glass and going back to the stem. And that was God telling me, he was like, that was your hopes and dreams. If she still would have been here, you just really didn't want to chase them, and it was just a way to get you to chase them and work it out for you. And I have a plan for you. And everybody's like full body chills when they hear that and get that. But, I don't know what my journey looks like still. I know that God won't tell me because he knows that I'll mess it up. And, it'd be like that. But, we got a good God. And when you stick with him and let him work in your life, he really will work it out for you. I know what those dreams are, and I really can't reveal them to you. Like, I have small visions of them, but he doesn't give them to me or tell me how I'm going to get there. I just know that I'm waiting on him and building my relationship with him. I think I'm in a season where I need more time with him and to get to know him better and to armor up better before I can go into those dreams, because I have huge dreams and cannot wait for them to come to pass. But I'm gonna say this too, this video would be a lot longer, but I prayed about it, and God really protected me from something the last 2 years, and I didn't realize it. But I am just too bitter, and I'm still in a very bitter state with the people that it involved to talk about it. But I want you to know that one day a story will come when I heal and get over it and reflect on it and can see the good, like I did with my mom's passing. There's more to my story than that, but now's not the time to talk about it. And also, I want to talk about forgiveness a little bit. People ask where I'm at with the person that was behind the wheel, and I'm just gonna tell you, I forgave them a long time ago. At first I was mad, upset, wanted to seek vengeance, wanted an eye for an eye, totally, wholeheartedly. But over time, I had this thought just come over me one day, and I was like, you know what? They're a person. They have feelings too, and they live with that guilt every day. And it's not my job to sit there and condemn them or harass them or torment them. Legally, I can't even contact them. Not that I'm going to. You know, they probably deal with it on their own on a daily basis. But yeah, wholeheartedly forgive them. I hate that it happened, but you know, maybe it's working out for their lives too. But yeah, that is it. That is the end of my testimony for now. I don't know where my life's going. I can tell you my dreams and intentions with social media. Like, I could care less if I end up on a magazine. I could care less if I want things, but I could care less about the fame and the money aspect about it. Like, if it doesn't glorify like my life or my story that's God's story through me, I just don't care. And you know, I'm glad that I'm not that 17-year-old that I used to be. And you know, it is what it is. Life happens. You learn, you learn things, and it goes. I just want to do this really quick. I don't really feel qualified to do that, and a lot of that is because, you know, people kind of put a stereotype on me that I don't know what I'm talking about. But in Romans, it says that I want to take a moment, if you feel like you're not right with God, or you feel like you've backslid, or you're very lukewarm, and you just want to rededicate your life. I want to take a moment, even though I think I'm not qualified for this, to say a prayer with me to change your life and save your life. And you know, just bow your head, close your eyes. It's going to be super simple, but it says in the Bible that if you confess that Jesus is Lord, that you shall be saved. And you know, I really hope that my story encourages you, and you know, hope it helps you see that God does love you and He does care about you. I didn't feel that way. I was very lukewarm with Him for a long time. But let's just bow our head and close our eyes. Just say this prayer with me. Say, Dear God, I've sinned, I've backslid, I'm not where I want to be with you, but I do think that Jesus is Lord, and I want to trade my debt of sins for His sacrifice on the cross. And I want to live my life walking with you and Jesus, and letting the Holy Spirit be my helper back to my heavenly home and back to you. So God, please let Jesus come into my life as the King of my heart and the King of my dreams, and just have your way and your will with me. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, so that wraps up the video. I hope to see you next week. I am tired of my excuses. I'm gonna get back to it, but I love you guys, and I'll see you soon. And if this encouraged you, you know, share it with somebody that you think needs this type of encouragement. And I love you guys, and just like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you next week. Peace.